All right, Dr. Apostle, take it away.
Sure. Gosh darn it, I hate making mistakes in front of a board member and all of you. So I'll try to remember and not do that again. Nevertheless, again, we're going to look at the possibility of meeting in public at our together, face-to-face, in person at our next meeting that we have. We'll talk more a little bit about the exact date, but I want to welcome all of you. And Chris Willis will talk to us about some safety progress that we've made lately, and he has a fine report as always. So Chris, will you go ahead?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I'll make sure that this gets posted, Holly, regarding the notes, but I'll just kind of give a brief description of what I've been asked to do regarding safety. For those of you who don't know, the data that we have to collect as a district include confirmed cases, suspected cases, which are the symptoms, kids who are sent home for symptoms, and then close contact information. So far this year, each building collects this information when it occurs. So far this year, we've had 24 total confirmed cases in the district, 128 suspected cases, which is kids who are sent home for the sniffles, and 19 close contacts. And so each of these areas are something that each of the health services staff collects when these occur. It's also collected by the human resources staff regarding staff as well as students. The second piece is that one of the things that we're going to be doing starting actually next week is that we've also kind of expanded our face mask guidelines. And we provided some feedback and some guidance to all of our staff regarding the type of masks to wear, but also how to wear them and the number of masks that staff should be wearing each day. One example is the disposable masks. Our elementary teachers should be wearing at least 2 of those each day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then they also asked for information regarding how often should I wash my mask. And so another one of that is that they need to be washed daily. Another area that we've been focused on as well is the health screenings, the daily health screenings for staff and students. One of the things that's occurred, which thanks to Anitra, our Skyward and data collection data person in the district. Sorry, Anitra. I'll get your title a little bit better next time. But in regards to that is that we have kids coming in each day who have had their attestations done or health screenings done by their families, and then temperature checks every day by our staff at the entrances of each of our buildings. The next piece here I want to talk a little bit about is an added mitigation measure, which is the weekly COVID-19 testing. As of so far, we have 108 staff participating in testing in the district. This is a little over 1/3 of our staff participating in the not health screening, but the COVID screening process within the district. Ording Middle School has 24, Ptarmigan Ridge 9, 15 at the district office, 31 at the high school, and that includes coaching staff. Coaching staff, 6 coaches are participating in the testing process, 25 at Ording Primary and 4 at the maintenance department. The more people that participate in the testing process, the better the mitigation process. The next piece is in regards to mitigation measure is our N95 fittings. We'll be participating in fittings. We have staff who work in, for example, our early childhood settings and our life skills settings who will be fitted for N95 masks in the district. And we just secured the contract for those fittings within the district. And then finally, and I don't know, Dr. Apostle, if you were going to talk about this at all, but we're beginning our planning regarding vaccinations for our staff and the community, honestly. And so I've made 2 contacts with Safeway Albertsons. They're interested in working for us, or not for us, but with us. And then the second piece is planning with local stakeholders as well regarding that planning. And I just got an email from the health department last week regarding what our plans were for vaccination and what support that we need in order to make that happen. So that's good news on the vaccination front, that, you know, we're not being left out, that we have to actually reach out in some cases, but at the same time, we have to be consciously aware of our community and work closely with our community to help vaccination, not only of our staff, but other community members.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's great to know that we're not being forgotten and that people are reaching out to us to aid us, and we welcome them. We want to cooperate with them as our partners and provide the services to our staff and community members as well. I'm very pleased to report that the reopening of our primary schools grades, our youngest students, has been successful to date, and it's due largely in part to the really hard work of our building administrators here tonight to talk about the opening of our schools at OPS and at Ptarmigan. We have Christy Ellenwood and Alicia Jensen, who will speak on some details that they're experiencing. And we even had David Slagle, who's also served as some cover for us to provide extra assistance there. So we really appreciate that, David, coming over from the middle school. So Alicia and Christy, will you go ahead and present, please?
Absolutely. So I just want to check in real quick around what's going on over at Ptarmigan. Our kids are just continuing to just amaze us and prove their eagerness to be back in the building. They are doing such a great job. They're learning all the new routines, like that there's zones on the recess, which is not how we've done it before. Being great about wearing their masks, really social distancing. They've got that figured out really well. And even just a new way to use the restroom than we've ever had before. Kids are doing a great job of learning new routines. It is sometimes harder as adults to learn a new habit than it is for a child. So our record right now is that we have had one arrival where we only had 5 kids who didn't have their wellness screening done beforehand. That's our record. We're going to keep working to beat that record. I know it is a new practice for parents. I know as a parent myself, it is a new practice for me to do it before my kids attend school. I know it's one that will continue to get better, and working with some strategies with some individual families with who needs a paper screening versus checking it off in the car and trying to find all the ways to catch those families right away to make sure that their kids are safe and well to be at school. All the things right now are a little bit flexible until we get tight. So as we figure out the things that need to be adjusted a little bit and where we are giving too much time to some things and not enough time to others, we're going to keep making those adjustments, knowing that we'll double our numbers next week and then double them again the week after that. So as we learn more, we're just going to keep doing more, but really just so excited to have the kids back. Staff are so excited to have the kids back. It feels really great to have kids in the school. So just, it's great. It's great. I'm going to pass it up to Christy because I'm sure there's some questions for everybody, but I want to make sure Christy gets a chance as well.
We are 4 days into having students in person on campus, and it has gone so well. We're a little bit nervous about the idea of bringing kinder and first back at the same time. It wasn't the original plan, and actually think it really has worked out well. Having a couple of groups of kids together. We, I think, over-planned in some places. We wanted to have adults every, 10 feet probably. Steve was there on campus the first day, but that students knew that there were adults along the way to help, to guide them, to answer questions, just to be a friendly face. Some of the things that we were most concerned about is having 80 kinder and first grade, so 5, 6, and 7-year-olds on campus with no older brothers and sisters to walk them to class, with families being expected to say goodbye at the car, where normally on the first day of kindergarten, they'd walk their kids in. So we did a lot of prep work with our kindergarten team and our first grade team, who were fantastic. If you were on campus the week before, you'd see the kindergarten teachers with their computers walking around campus, giving kids a tour of, this is what it's going to look like when you get off the bus. This is what my classroom looks like. Our kindergarten team planned, because we have 5 kindergarten classrooms, one of the classrooms had a turtle on their outside window, one had balloons, one had stars. So if kids couldn't tell you what their teacher's name was, they could at least tell you, I'm looking for the turtle. And so we had our adults all along the way knew where those classrooms were at. And because when I asked a little girl who her teacher was, she said, you. And I said, ooh, I don't think so. What are you looking for? And when she said the turtle classroom, I was so relieved because I knew that that was Mrs. Collins and she was going to be in good hands. But our teams have just been really thoughtful in planning those transitions. We had such smooth arrivals. You could not come to OPS and make it more than 10 feet without having an adult ask you, good morning, who's your teacher? Where are you headed? And some of the kids were like, oh, I already told that person right there. They know their way. This morning after, being off campus for 4 days, the kids got right back into the groove of it. We start at 8:50 technically, and by 9 o'clock I was in classrooms and we had teachers working. First grade was working on place value. Kindergarten was starting to work on kids writing their names. One kindergarten teacher was working on teaching the word vocabulary word trembling, and the kids were practicing showing what trembling looked like. It was so great just to be back in person and seeing our kids happy. One of the things that was exciting at OPS on Tuesday of last week, we had a team leader meeting, and I asked our leads who had been working with kids, I said, can you share with us some of the big successes so that the 2nd and 3rd grade teachers can hear that? And one of the first things that a teacher said is the things that we were most worried about as adults, the kids are incredibly successful with. Wearing their masks, social distancing, and remembering to use hand sanitizer and wash their hands. Like Alicia said, they've had to learn new routines for the bathrooms and playgrounds. The kids have done really well, and a lot of that is because of the care of all of the adults at OPS, and district office was over at OPS that first day. We had a number of high school staff members that Cliff had just put out a call and said, hey, if you have a few extra minutes during these times. So the high school teachers were waving to kids and welcoming them, and it was just great to see that. That even though it's the 5th day of kids being on campus, it really looks like the 100th day of school, which is tomorrow. And we're just really appreciative of the opportunity to have our kids back. We're really excited to welcome our 2nd and 3rd graders next week. And our kindergartners are going to be the ones to show them where to go and how to do it. And we feel pretty confident that they're going to do a great job of modeling for their big brothers and sisters what it looks like to come to school.
Well, you've both done a great job. What in particular, in bringing back the 2nd and 3rd graders, what adjustments do you think will rise to the forefront? What do you anticipate? More of the same?
I think we have a lot of our systems are pretty successful. Like Alicia talked about, the attestation piece is, I think, probably the place where we're spending the most amount of time. This morning, I think we had 15 families that didn't fill it out of 170. So some of that is just getting even better at those routines. It's not the same families every morning. So the families who are struggling, morning after morning, we've already set up systems for them. I think that the structures that we have in place, we can easily double the capacity and still be running pretty quickly to get kids checked in and checked out at the end of the day. So we're excited to see that. Recess, we have good systems. Teachers are going out with kids, so we don't anticipate that we'll have issues there. We've tried to plan long-term and not just in our K1 week. We've tried to look at a big picture. So it should just be some small tweaks.
Well, Christy, we get calls from parents, and they're both positive and sometimes they're a little critical. And of course, you recognize that there was a little bit of a log jam with cars, a little gridlock that first day. And I was really pleased to hear that it didn't reoccur on the second and third day. It just, you took care of the problem right away. So I was really pleased with that.
Yeah, thank you. It doesn't take families long to get into a routine, and they just have to see it sometimes and have that first day of, oh, okay, this is what it looks like. And they've done a great job of adapting, and kids are really quick at unloading, and our check-in team is amazing.
Yeah, I think we're definitely finding those places that are like, we maybe over planned for the amount of time it takes kids to get out of cars and say goodbye to parents, because we planned for that idea the first day of kindergarten and how long that was. Like, oh, we actually, by today, they were out of the cars. We were done in 5 minutes. We maybe don't need as much space there now because that routine is now shored up so much. But yeah, I agree with Christy. We've planned for the idea that we know we need to get to this number of our full capacity number and what staffing do we need. So there's places right now that may look clunkier, but as those systems get in place and we keep moving kids through, I think we're in a good spot to be able to keep moving forward.
Well, I want to commend both of you. Keep up the good work and carry on. All right. Next, we're going to hear from Chris Willis and Steve Rabb on the special education program and some general ed issues regarding moving into second semester. So Chris and Steve.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to start? I'll start with special ed, and
sure.
Then Steve can go with others. So one of the things that we've learned through this whole process is that there was a going from at semester time, going from option A to option B has been a challenge for some of our families. And the reason why is they were expecting more of the same. In other words, when they were in the fall, they had their teacher, they were meeting with their teacher on an ongoing basis, 2 to 3 times a day. And when they moved to option B, because they didn't want their children for a variety of very, very good reasons, they moved their kids to option B thinking it was going to be more of the same. When they actually found out that that wasn't the case, that it's an alternative learning environment, that there are expectations, the structure is different. And so we've had to spend a considerable, well, not considerable time, but some time working with our families to figure out the special education services that were going to be a little bit different. The structure of the day was going to be a little bit different, and the accommodations were going to be a little bit different. And so, and all aligned with the IEPs and 504 plans. So we're working individually with individual families regarding the special education and the structure. And what we've learned is making sure that we are clear, that maybe provides a significant number of examples of what their day could look like, so that there's less, because if we're going to continue with this option B or the Ording Virtual Academy, families really need to know what that looks like. And so as of now, I think we've met with most of the families that had their concerns at semester time, and we were able to reconcile. Some of the kids ended up going back to option A, and then other kids we've figured out kind of a hybrid approach between option A and option B. And so overall, I think we've made some significant strides in building that communication. The next part of it was with staff, making sure that staff internally knew what option B was. And so I worked several weeks ago with the option B teachers to make sure that there was some clarity for our special education staff around what option B was and what it wasn't. And so, and that we developed some guidance for that for staff and for our families.
Well, we try to plan and look for what the next issue could be, or conflict or concern. What I'd like is that our team has been very nimble. It's been able to monitor and adjust, which has been critically important to recover from maybe a different way of doing things and recommunicating more clearly. So, you know, we haven't gone through this process ever before. And so, you know, we're really getting practiced. Our game is improving, And I really love the work that people are doing. And when they see something that needs to be improved, they're on it right away. And I'm just really happy with that. Steve.
Well, yeah.
Go
And one
ahead,
of the
Chris.
real quick, one of the nice things was that the option B teachers came to me and said, I think we have a communication problem. And so we got together and really kind of hashed it out together, which was really positive. And so that we're not only communicating with our community stakeholders, but also our teachers within the system itself. So, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Steve.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to what both of you guys have said. I think just standing back away from it a little bit, I think it was what Chris said is you had some people who believed option B was going to look a little bit like option A did previously. And then you also had people who kind of understood what the difference was, and they were asking for option C,
Right.
which we didn't have option C. And we considered the idea that kids could learn from home with their regular teacher while teachers were teaching physically in the classroom, a group of kids, as well as kids that were learning from home. And we worked through that as a leadership team and with our union partners and whatnot. And that just was not, we just have not found any of the systems, and there are systems that are doing that. And we're just not finding that is as viable. It certainly solves that one problem, but it creates a bunch of other problems. And so, we've landed where we've landed, and hopefully people will get the message of what it is. And, as kids are starting to return to school, and then that communication goes out, and we'll obviously try to communicate as clearly as we can moving forward. It's always that balance of how much detail you give versus not. And at one point, there doesn't seem like there's not enough detail that you could ever give. And in another point, people get lost in the details, and it just doesn't make sense to them. So trying to navigate that communication road, I like what Chris said. They reached out to him and said, I think we've got a communication problem. And that literally is the biggest issue I think we face going, looking back over our shoulder and moving forward. How do we get better at that?
They were very nice to me.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Does anyone have any questions for Christy or Alicia or Chris or Steve at this time?
I do.
Okay, Kathy.
Okay, for Chris, kids that stay home because they're not because they have a cold, are they then counted as someone who has COVID, or are they just counted as absent?
No, they're counted. Sorry, they're counted as a suspected case, and so we have three different categories. We have I'll call them exclusions. So we exclude students for having COVID. We exclude kids who have symptoms, and we exclude kids who have had close contact. And so, and staff. We use the same rules for both staff and students. So in the case of a kid being home for the sniffles,
Yes.
they're considered what we call suspected cases.
Oh.
And we had 120 so far this year. We've had, based upon the data that's been collected, we've had 128 cases so far this year.
Okay. And my other question for you specifically, no, two more is, you were talking about how many teachers are getting the screening, and can they add themselves onto that as the in-person learning expands?
So yes, so if they want to start the process, they can start at any point.
Okay.
We have plenty of tests, and so they can start at any point. For example, we've had some people that some of our substitutes want to start, and so they can start right away. We're also talking to the football players. We have 12 senior football players. They're going to be, Tom has talked to them, Mr. Bennett has talked to them about taking a leadership role in mitigating the threat. So they've been asked to do that as well. So staff can start at any point they want to, and the pickups are on Monday and Tuesday.
And I'm really, really glad that you're reaching out with the vaccinations, because living out here, unless you're willing to drive to Gig Harbor or Tacoma, and the system is really, really difficult to navigate sometimes, so I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Well, and one of the things too is that I was talking to the people at the senior center last week,
Yes.
and we have a majority of our seniors, which number in the hundreds, who come every day. And she mentioned that they're about less than 5% of them have been vaccinated, and it's because they have no access to the internet. They don't know how to sign up for a vaccine. And so anything that we can do within our community to help support them would be much appreciated. So it's not only for our staff, but it's also for our senior citizens in our community.
Excellent, excellent. And my other question is for Christy, because I know OPS the building so well and the labyrinths in that building. The one thing I was concerned about was the hallways when the numbers increase, because of the classes coming in and out.
So it won't actually increase the hallway numbers any, because of the fact that K1 is the only one using the existing hallways. Second and third are all out in the portables in the annex, and they can use their outside doors, which is fantastic. But right now, we have 5 kinder, and 4 of them actually have outside doors.
Right.
So those classrooms go around to outside doors. And then we have 3 of our first grade that actually go straight through the building and through the courtyard. So they're
Right.
only in the building for just a minute. So we actually only have right now 3 classrooms that have to really utilize an inside hallway, which is fantastic. So that number will stay really small.
Good. I didn't know, how you were working it out with drop off and that. So I'm glad to hear that, because those hallways they're especially back there in the back, they're pretty narrow. So glad to hear that. Good. That was it for me.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Any other questions for our team?
I have a. Yep.
Yes.
Zane.
Yes, Zane.
Yeah, just a real quick comment. Some news today is OVFR. Tony, I think you're on the meeting on Friday. We're going to talk about immunizations with you guys, but also we reached out to the senior center today with the health department, because EMTs and paramedics under the new emergency regulations can give vaccinations. So we are kind of working with the senior center as well and with the school district. So I thought that kind of added to the conversation. So
Yes. Yes, Zane, I'm looking forward to our meeting, and Chris and I have been talking about it as well. So we're hopeful that they're really going to extend some great services to us out here in Ording.
I think it sounds pretty positive. It was conversation as I was leaving the office to come to this meeting, but there was pretty positive conversation about the senior center that
Great.
We're going to be able to do something for them.
Yeah, because I offered them actually some of the COVID tests, because we had plenty, and because they have to go onto the internet and be able to log in to register they go, it's not possible. And so I'm so glad you talked to them, because they were really concerned about the people they work with.
All right. Well, we're hopeful. Got our fingers crossed. We're expecting our 2nd and 3rd graders to come back on Monday, the 22nd. And I think that we have parents and students really excited to come back to school. It's going to look like almost a full house at our elementaries. And that can make people real nervous, but excited as well. So it's going to be great to see the kids come back. The 4th and 5th graders then are scheduled 2 weeks later on Monday, the 8th of March. And you'll be hearing more about our plans on the return for our middle school and high school as we move through the next few weeks. But there's a lot of great planning taking place. We want to do all we can to make steady, successful progress, and we'll be able to monitor and adjust as we move along. So at this time, I just want to share with everyone that I'm thinking that our next meeting very likely will be in person on Tuesday, March 16th. That will be just before our the time that our middle schoolers will probably be returning in some capacity we don't know which grade levels yet, but we will probably be in an A-B schedule. David, I know that you weren't on the agenda, but anything you would like to share about the reopening of our middle school?
Well, you caught me tongue-tied, Tony.
Of course.
And I got to tell you, watching, pulling K1s in, and the energy that made across the teaching core, like folks talk, we're small, right? And so just having K1s on campus has given my staff a boost. And in our conversations, we just had leadership team this afternoon. I'll be transparent. I'm pressing for sooner rather than later, and I think we've got the right people on board to make it happen. And the fact that we recognize, Kevin and I and Cliff and Matt at the high school recognize that a successful elementary reentry is essential to the return of our secondary kids. And so I think we're well on our way, and we're really looking forward to getting them back. And the prospect of being back in school or back in class in person prior to spring break is huge. It kind of puts a light at the end of the tunnel for my staff, and it's a real good motivator for folks. So feels good.
Thank you, David. Sorry for the sudden request for you to share, but I know you're always ready to give us your thoughts, and very important for the team to hear what you're thinking. If you look back at the several months that we've been meeting, all the unknowns that have been presented to us, all the challenges that have been evident not only to us but nationwide, we've made such great steady progress. And from not knowing if we would ever be able to have in-person learning, here we are moving through our first group of students and staff, and we're on to moving with our next second and third graders, followed by fourth and fifth graders soon. So I'm just really, really pleased with the steady, staggered progress that we've made, and that I hope that it continues so that we can open our schools to all of our students throughout Orting. And our students deserve it, our staff deserve it, and certainly the parents and relatives deserve it as well. For some people, it hasn't been fast enough. I understand that. And but I think that our methodical process is working in our favor at this time. And I think that we have some great training taking place with regard to our safety protocols and our insistence that people stay 6 feet away from one another, and that our students wear masks and our staff wears masks. Our little kids coming in, they were so proud of their masks. They pointed to their masks. They wanted me to see the Batman or the superstars, and they went on from every animal you could think of. And we thought originally that it would be too hard for our students to wear the masks and keep the masks on. They're wearing them like a badge of honor. And so it's really great to see. I'm really happy with that. So any final comments for tonight's meeting?
I just want to say thank you, Dave, for answering Dr. Apostle's questions, because if you didn't know, I was going to ask, because I told my boys I will ask at 6 o'clock when they can go back to school. I didn't hear a date, but I did hear possibly before spring break, which would be amazing. Also, it's interesting, if we added middle school students, it wouldn't increase any numbers of people being close together because they don't go to school with first and second graders. So if it's working at first, second grade, and it's going to work next week at second and third grade, then at the same time, we could do like 6, 7, 8 because they would never be mixing. So we're not adding volume. So that might be something to think about that you guys have probably been talking about, because I cannot explain to my boys why the little kids can go and they can't if they never are in the same place. It doesn't make sense. So I appreciate that you're probably discussing that. And if you want to send me a private sneaky email, I promise not to tell anyone date you're thinking about, but I'm going to give it to my boys.
Well, we've been staggering our returns every 2 weeks. And if we stay with that staggered start, it's possible that, Monday, March 22 might be the circled date. We'll wait and see.
Yes, I have done that math, and I have told them if it were up to me, I would use the same formula, and it could be March 22nd. So that way I would appreciate. We're having a really rough time here.
Yeah, we understand that. Many families are. We understand.
Thank you.
When middle school starts, what happens with busing? Are you coming at a different time so there's less, or are you just going to let them all be on the bus, or what's the deal with that? Or is that not worked out yet?
It hasn't been worked out yet. Though I'll tell you right now, when we start, and I know Megan's here, so she can speak for herself. I'll start, but once we add the second and third graders, the social distancing on the bus will be much more difficult. Right now, and with the high needs students, it was very, very easy or easier to maintain social distancing. But once we get on the bus with second and third, and then obviously fourth and fifth, that's going to be much more difficult. And so, and then the same will be when we start working and expanding who we bring back in the middle school and the high school as well. High school is probably not going to be as big of a deal, but for sure the elementaries, the social distancing will be literally impossible. And so,
Yeah. On top of, we're still delivering meals throughout the district using
Correct.
our buses and our drivers. So it's a lot of coordination.
Yes, a lot of coordination. Good term, but we have it's enormous impact. We go full scale. That really causes the system to shudder a bit at first. But we'll get back into that routine when it's necessary. We will do that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that we started using some of the vans to help with the meal service. That was my understanding. That's a good use of those vehicles.
Absolutely. Carrie, do you have anything you'd like to share with this committee?
I had an absolute joy welcoming our OPS students back. So Christy Ellenwood had everything so neatly organized and this really cool balloon arch. And I had the opportunity of greeting the kids. So they had been dropped off. They passed through screening in the cafeteria, and then they popped out the other side, kind of by themselves, and we caught them and welcomed them. And every single student to the one, there was one little boy who kind of had this wide-eyed look of he wasn't quite sure, but every other student was literally buzzing with excitement and so excited to be at school. And so just shout out to everyone who helped coordinate the plan at our schools to welcome these kids out. It looked flawless from my perspective, so good job. And I can't wait to welcome more kids back. So I know so much planning and effort went into that. So thank you. There's more work to come, but so far so good.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes,
Yeah.
Kathy?
And I got to see the exit of the morning group at PTR, and I was real worried about how the whole getting on the bus would work out, because I've done that myself, and I know that can be chaotic, but they were able to do it in a way that they kept those kids apart, and that everybody was out there helping. So it went really well.
Well, great. I appreciate everyone's comments this evening. We will plan on meeting on Tuesday, March 16th. Hopefully that will be a week before we bring back our middle schoolers. I do want to say, though, that depending upon events, we will always meet as needed. And so if we have to come together sooner than March 16th, we will do that. So we'll give you ample time in advance to know about any kind of special meeting that we may have together as a task force. But I really want to tell you how much I appreciate the fact that every time I look up at the number of people that are in attendance from the beginning of the meeting to the end, that number is great. We have 33, 34, and the people stay with us the entire time. So I'm very grateful for everyone's participation throughout our meetings. So with that, if there's anything anyone wants to share for the good of the order, go ahead, Bonnie.
Honey, we have a meeting scheduled on March 2nd. Are we keeping that meeting?
I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So our next meeting is going to be on March 16th.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good evening and stay in touch with us. Good night.